Hey, so my name is Atishay. I'm a CPG principal here at the Math Company, based out of New Jersey. And today we have a panel of our CPG experts, our SMEs, who have been leading multiple engagements and initiatives with Fortune 500 organizations. And we have gathered here to talk about what was 2024 like, and more importantly, what does the outlook say for 2025. Before we jump into the introduction, would definitely love to introduce the panel right here. So, like I said, I'm a CPG principal looking specially into the US market for our CPG customers. With me, I have Nabeel, who looks into the products that get built for the CPG organizations. And then we have Silvana, who's our SME for looking into the CPG business for the globe. And then we have Sumeet also with us, who's our CPG tech expert. So welcome everyone.
Thank you.
For
Thanks,
doing
Atishay.
this. Thank you for bringing your valuable inputs to this discussion. So let's begin, right? Like 2024 has seen a great upswing in terms of how the industry has been, right? And this has been shaped by consumer preferences. This has been shaped by technology and, of course, the macroeconomic factors that the globe is entering into. Some of the things that at least I have witnessed, specifically when I talk about the US market, is the consumer preferences are getting more and more towards healthier snacking, right? And which is, because of the shifting focus towards more of health and nutrition. I think brands are becoming more conscious about what goes into their products. What about the sustainability? What about the changing the ways in which you engage with consumers? We have always talked about personalization, but I think 2024 was the year where it potentially got even more unlocked, possibly due to Gen AI as well, right? So those were some of the things that I've seen. I've definitely seen more, but would love to hear your thoughts of how was 2024 for CPG industry from your respective lenses.
Yeah, I can definitely add there. Like you said, Atishay, I think the market itself had grown. I think there's definitely a lot of use of technology. So in my world, over the last couple of years, we've been spending a lot of time with the leading CPG manufacturers, primarily building custom digital assets or products to help run the business better. So I would say broadly, organizations use us for three main reasons. One, there's usually experiments that are run within the organizations which are done at a smaller scale, which they like to scale up globally, and it gets difficult and doesn't really scale well. That's why we come in and sort of build out these products and then scale them globally. Second, there's usually tied down to licenses that are great off-the-shelf products, but come with large license fees. It starts off fantastic for the first couple of years, and then it degrades. And organizations want to take back control and own their IP.
Right.
And those have been places where we've come in, built in a lot of applications on RGM, pricing, assortment, etc. Amazingly robust off-the-shelf products exist. They don't really fit the business process, and adoption suffers. So that's again a very specific reason where we come in, understand how does assortment work, for a large cereal manufacturer versus another, CPG organization, and then the product that itself might be solving the same purpose, but looks very, very different. So, taking back control, driving adoption, and improving the business was primarily where I saw a lot of spend go in last year.
That's an interesting point. Taking back control, right? So when it comes to technology, I'm sure technology plays a big role in making sure that the IP stays with the organization itself. Like what are you seeing when it comes to technology? Any other trends?
2024, as is the case in the entire world, we are now truly in the age of AI. Right? I think the industry here also saw that getting accelerated, incredibly fast is what I would say. We saw in 2024 that a lot of our organizations that we work with were extremely interested in building AI assistants, right? That could either do decision support for the end users. The end users in this case could be brand managers, category managers, or it could be, connecting on getting more insights, right, from their existing tools like dashboards or, decks, PowerPoint decks, right, or any sort of documents. But how do you get those insights faster at the tip of your fingertips, right? And we've done several implementations of these AI assistants in the past year. specifically in the space of marketing analytics and say promo optimization is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Still, staying on the topic of like what happened this year. Something that I actually noticed in US market was, many of these organizations, they went through mergers and acquisitions, right? And also just in terms of how to engage end consumers. On that front, do any one of you want to share anything? Like, how do you think that would possibly change the outlook for 2025? Right? Does that contribute to that growth, the entire change in dynamics? So, Silvana, what does 2025?
Yeah, so you spoke about technology, you spoke about Gen AI, and firstly, I do believe that digital transformation is here to stay, especially given that CPG companies are still lagging behind industries like financial services, insurance, and healthcare. And that's largely due to first-party data not being available for a really long time.
Yeah, right.
Gen AI experimentation is here to stay, especially in the space of customer experience, personalization, personal recommendations, and anything that can drive edge. So companies will continue to invest in that space. Secondly, what I think we will see is we are seeing, and you mentioned the smaller brands coming, they're disrupting the old traditional brand space, especially because of digital channels. Smaller brands, which are better for you, better for the environment, now have access to consumers which they didn't have before. And this is disrupting the old traditional brands. If you look at digital spend, CPG companies are still lagging behind when it comes to digital spend. So digital spend is about 75% of total spend, whereas for CPG that's 50%. So CPG companies still have to catch up on in terms of digital spend. And thirdly, we are going to see more volume-driven revenue growth because we've seen quite a few price increases in the last few years, largely to offset the supply chain disruptions because of COVID. And now companies are going to have to look at premiumization, portfolio mix, assortment, and how can they optimize margins when we don't have the luxury of price increases. And I don't know, you've probably seen the same in products.
Yes, absolutely. I think we've all seen that. Over the last couple of years, a lot of the expansion came from price being used as a lever.
Right.
But I think we're seeing across the board that is slowly coming to an end because there's only so much that you can increase. And that's where, Silvana, like you said, mix or optimization and then moving more towards higher margin products, becomes an outcome or an objective that organizations are chasing. So I think that's something that's going to continue into 2025 as well.
And if I can just add on to that, smaller brands are actually doing this much better. Smaller brands are premiumizing much faster than a lot of the private label brands. So smaller brands are marginalizing a lot of the bigger brands and private label brands.
No, thank you. So I think, firstly, thank you for sharing the outlook. There are 3 to 4 points that you spoke about, and I'd definitely like to deep dive into each of those, right? Talking about the BFI, the Better For You brands, right, which are picking up a lot of pace in terms of consumer favoritism, how they are going after such brands. When it comes to such brands, taking over consumer preferences, or such large brands that you spoke about, they end up either acquiring them or merging with them. In such cases, maybe Sumeet, the question is for you. When two organizations merge, right, they are having different tech stack, they are having different technology preferences, infrastructure. What are you seeing in terms of what would be the priority for such mergers and acquisitions from a tech point of view to be successful? Because I'm sure both organizations are at different levels of maturity. So what are you seeing that how can such things be tackled when this happens?
I think one thing that we generally see when a situation like this occurs is that both the brands continue to independently exist. Let's say for a short period of time, right? At least in the tech space, right? The underlying infra is what I'm talking about. Like, so for the next, say, 1 year, 2 years, right? While the parent brand takes over the foundation, so that the smaller brand in this case can be merged into their ecosystem, right? So I think the parent brand, that is actually going into the acquisition has to be completely ready, in terms of being able to modularly, intake the infra of the brand that they are acquiring, right? But this typically takes about 1.5 to 2 years is what we've seen, right? So, and I think it's going to be similar is what I would say. Yeah.
Definitely. I can add on that as well. It's definitely a long-term journey when it comes to, mergers and acquisitions. And even if we switch our focus a little bit to the retail space, which has point-of-sale systems and
Correct.
CRM
Yes.
systems,
Yeah.
right? It goes 5-10 years when they still sort of pseudo-exist independently and doesn't really come together and become one cohesive underlying infrastructure.
Right.
So I think that's roughly how that works as well, right? Pretty slow.
Okay. No, that's. I think the industry continues to see such, trends shaping up and shaping the entire industry. Coming to the next point, Silvana, I think that you brought up was more around the volume-driven growth, right? Could you maybe just double down on that and explain like what is it that you're seeing across the globe and what does it mean for organizations to shift their priorities to? Like if they had limited, which they always do, limited resources, what should they go after to maximize their share of wallet?
So this is a topic that's very close to my heart, as you know, IGM. So we've seen some pretty significant or pretty steep price increases over the last few years, which had a big impact on volume and growth. Now that companies have actually tired consumers of price increases, they have to be a lot more careful about what price increases they take, which means that price increases are going to be, or maybe there's going to be price decreases, or pricing, possibly is going to be, the inflation is going to be much lower, which means we should actually see volume increase because there's an incentive for consumers to purchase a lot more, which means that companies are going to have lesser influence over margins now that pricing has been taken away as a lever. So what are some of the ways to minimize the impact on margin or to actually improve margin is to be a lot more effective with price promotions and trade spend, looking at portfolio mix and premiumization, so basically pushing more high profitable brands. And those are some of the ones that come to mind. Driving innovation for consumers, category expansion, looking at category mix as well. Those are the few that come to mind.
So what you're seeing, and Nabeel, maybe the question is to you. She spoke about how price promo will play the key role when it comes to products, right? What is it that you are seeing that organizations are not thinking about right now, because the levers are still going to be similar to what Silvana is saying, how to activate those levers, what are some of the things that organizations usually get wrong while activating those levers, and what would be your recommendation to them if they start on this journey in 2025?
Got it. See, the closest sister industry that we can look at is retail. And the fundamental difference that we see, all of us when we're working with CPG versus retail is the lack of data. And we've all seen it. And, having to rely on syndicated data sources, which are sometimes erroneous, sometimes lagged, where even if you do the analysis of the model right, the net result might not be the most accurate. So that's something that is usually a caution. It's not like the organizations are doing it wrong deliberately, but it is somewhere that you can be wrong if you've not seen the whole picture, if you don't have the most recent data to capture trends and fluctuations that are happening, and you act on lagging indicators. I think this is very relevant in your world as well, right, Sumeet? Like lagging indicators can let you to make erroneous decisions as well.
Absolutely. And then, as you said, that lack of their own data, right, is probably the reason why a lot of problems in this space are best dealt via some sort of approximation at different levels, right? Now, they are accurate solutions, right? But that's the closest that you can get because you have issues with coverage of data in the market, right? You have issues with, my shipment going today, but it's getting consumed, say, 3 months later. But decisions will not wait, right? So there, I think, best case approximation rather than chasing 100% accuracy is the way that this industry has been and would probably continue to be.
I just want to add on to that. We're starting to see more connected insights between different functions. So especially with CPG organizations that are more mature in their transformational journey, they're not planning price promotions without first seeing what is the supply chain status in terms of out of stocks or what is in transit, which is an impact of basically connected insights and connected systems.
Is that something that you're seeing happen more organically now in 2025, or
It's
they have been
mostly
trying but they have not been successful at it? Like, what's your take on
it's
that?
mostly the companies that are investing in that space. They want to be ahead of the curve.
And Nabeel, so coming to the point of interconnectedness
Yeah.
of these different decisions,
Yep,
right?
yep.
What are you seeing? Because you're looking at some of the organizations work in Europe and US, etc., and you're looking at the RGM functions, and then there's the marketing functions. What about products which cut across functions, or do you need multiple products for every function?
Yeah, yeah, no, very interesting question. We'll break that into two parts. One is how do you build digital products that work globally and scale globally?
Okay.
So we've been working, with some of our clients where, let's take an example. There's a pricing product or a trade promo, optimization product. Organizations have been very judicious in their, spend on tech. Let's say you build in the US market first, which has all the data, all the budget. Then the smaller markets like LATAM, EMEA, APAC can use the base that was built in the US and then, bring in a scaled down, pared down version of the same, assortment application or a trade promo application. Organizations have been savvy doing, something like that. What was the second point that
Just
you
in
wanted?
terms of, is it one product that cuts across functions, or would you need multiple products for every function and then figure out a way how do they
Yeah,
speak to each other?
so historically there have been big walls between marketing, sales, and Catman. But I think at least, like Silvana said, we're seeing those walls come down a little bit, and there's organizations are understanding that it's not about fiefdom; it's about sharing intelligence and sharing knowledge that helps drive the overall organization forward. So, like Silvana said, we're seeing instances where sales and marketing, and cat management are working together to sort of overall increase the pie.
Yeah, and I think on the same vein, I think we've also seen our products evolve to be more workflow orchestrators, right? As you spoke about, right, like that there are different, functions, marketing, sales, category management, and there are walls in between, right? The connection between them is the workflow orchestrator, right? Which would, so very, very features which are very nascent or which are very recently seen our products are, for example, approval of workflows, right? Ability to write or override, numbers that come from model. For example, demand forecasting, right? You have to start it at the most granular level, it goes up to a category level, and there are different people who work with these forecasts within the function. Let's say sales is doing it, and it goes to marketing, then it will change again. But we've seen singular tools being able to cater to a request that like this that can seamlessly integrate across functions via some really cool features.
I have a question for Sumeet, if I may. I hope it's not a trick question.
Make my job easier.
In terms of your experience with Gen AI, what do you think are going to be some of the hot use cases we're going to be solving next year?
Yeah, I think one of the use case that we've already started solving, right, is in the space of creative ad generation, right. A lot of marketing happens on different products. The CPG company has to market across different digital platforms.
Right.
So how can you create different types of ads quicker, faster, which can be deployed within seconds and does not require a lot of back and forth in terms of designing it, right? And how can you fail fast? Like if the ad doesn't look good, like change it to the next one, right? So we've actually tried a lot of this in the previous year itself, but in this year, I think it will go a little bit, further. Connecting to your point on innovation for customers, I think we've seen, CPG companies becoming more actively listening to the consumers on social media, different, online retailer platforms, and not just taking the reviews and the ratings seriously. Comparing them with competitors, ratings and reviews in the similar product space, and the AI has the capability to then generate a white space for them that does not exist for them but exists for their competitors, right? We've been running an experiment where we are trying to understand if we can get it to a recipe level, let's say for a food, right? For a food or a confectionery based, CPG company, and we are also trying, because I mean, food you can still actually not go and implement it, right? I mean, I'm not sure how that loop will close when the recipe is there and someone actually has to try. But packaging is a space which can be definitely tried on, right? You can look at different reviews on social media, on different websites, see what can change in my packaging, right? See what colors appeal. Is it speaking my design language? And then the possibilities are endless, right? You can actually 3D print it, right? Or if nothing, you can look at it in an augmented reality space where you can look at the object, in a 3D space, right? So I think that's where
is that really happening? We're still talking about 2025, right? not 2030 or something.
Absolutely. I think it will make strides in the product innovation space. I think AI will make strides in product.
No, that does really open up the traditional problem, I think, in CPG, the classic one of media mix modeling, right? Everyone talks about, and suddenly bringing in Gen AI to do all of this. The world of possibilities that it opens to. So that's great. So let's actually continue on the same vein, right? So when we're talking about these new problems, new horizons coming up, are there some problems that all of you are seeing or anticipating will come up in 2025 that CPG organizations would like to solve, which have not been tried or not solved so much, let's say, so far? Any specific? Because one thing from my experience with working with a CPG manufacturer is the tapping into unattended retail, right? All the vending machines and the retail stores are getting smart, right? So that's one thing because of the boom of post-COVID, no touch, low touch sales, and then the vending machines opening up. I think that's becoming one of the strong levers that I am personally seeing, which will help unlock growth. Are there any other problems that you're foreseeing which will be very new for the entire industry to start looking into to solve?
Yeah. I think I'll start with connecting it back to the AI problem that I was talking about, right? I think while it is easy for, say, for us to be able to create an ad for one product, 10 products, right? But we're talking about organizations here which have products in the range of 500 to 1,000, right? So how do you scale such a system, right? And how do you effectively measure whether the scaling has been accurate? And what is coming out of such systems is 100% ready to go in front of the consumers without a human involved, right? I think that's a place which will require a lot of thinking, because we are talking of organizations that are huge, right? And these systems can work in, like when I said that we can do packaging and we can create a 3D print of it, it definitely excites everybody, right? But how many such can you do at scale? And how do you keep your ROI in check while doing this?
And how do you ensure that whatever has been developed, how do you put a check to it before it gets deployed?
Yes, absolutely. Right? So that's called the human in the loop concept, right? In the AI space. But that's, I think, going to continue. I think scaling this to a level where it actually starts, driving significantly higher return on investments is going to be an interesting problem.
So you still need a human in the loop, right? Like we still need humans right
now. Some of the other challenges that I foresee is, to your point around marketing content for global organizations, is how do you translate into different languages and different geographies without losing the brand essence? That's going to be a challenge.
So that was amazing. But after knowing these different types of problems, right, organizations are spending so much, right? They are either trying to build them themselves or, buy it off the shelf, or, a hybrid of how to get to it faster. But Nabeel, in your experience, what have you seen when it comes to adoption of such solutions? What are the key challenges that organizations face, and what is your recommendation that how can they overcome such challenges?
Absolutely. So I think just like how humans are creatures of habit, I think organizations are also. So to take Sumeet's example, when we create content or creative with AI, if it doesn't really fit with the design language of the brand, you cannot use it, right? Which is where a human in the loop comes in. Similarly, if you're looking at, let's say, assortment planning, organizations have people are used to doing things a certain way. If it is a far departure from what they're doing today, it's very difficult to get it adopted. So what we've been doing is, not just involving the end users towards the end, but way up from the design phase, designing the digital product, going through the development with them, and then conducting an elaborate change management exercise towards the end, having them involved throughout, drastically improves the odds of adopting anything that you're creating for the org. So I like to say that if you follow this process, the transformation doesn't happen to them, it happens with them.
Well, on that note, let's make sure that all of us have the transformation with the CPG industry and not doing it to the industry. So thank you so much, Sumeet, Silvana, and Nabeel, for your time. Looking forward to meet you all again in 2025.
Thank you, Atishay.
Thanks, Atishay.